Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I'm Alvaro, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Gus and Nathan. Tonight you will be staying in room 103, The Last Duel, the 26th feature-length film by director Ridley Scott. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we dive into The Last Duel.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking back into the Grand Cinema Hotel. Want to give a big shout out to everybody that's checked out our previous two episodes. We got a lot of good feedback on those. And this week we are moving on from the indie film genre and are heading into mainstream Hollywood. We were checking out The Last Duel this week. Guess, what were your expectations heading into this film?
Hey guys, Gus here. I was really excited going into this film. I'm not the biggest Ridley Scott fan of I would say his recent work, probably like the past 10 years. But I felt like this was really a return to form for him. Great cast. It's a cool story. It's a true story, obviously. The trailer looked cool. It does get tiring seeing the same trailer for so long. I know you had felt that way a little bit.
I did.
But this movie really did deliver. And yeah, it was a good time at the theater. Good time.
It was a good time. Bro, what were your expectations heading into this film? Were you excited? Were you not?
Hi guys. I think a lot of, I got tired of seeing the preview so much, that's what you were saying. So I wasn't as excited to watch this movie even compared to the other two. And after watching it, I definitely have changed my sentiment on that. I definitely like this movie more than I thought. And I guess it completely was on the other side of what I thought it would be, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think I'd have to agree with you on that. This is the movie for this podcast that I was honestly probably the least excited for. I think, like we talked about, I had seen the trailer many times, so got my hopes kind of down. I don't really know why. And I am a big Ridley Scott stan.
Yeah, so, out of the three of us, you're definitely the Ridley Scott guy.
But like Rose said, this movie it exceeded my expectations. I thought that it delivered. I thought it was a film worth seeing in theaters.
I wanted to ask you this because you had been bringing up this one a lot. I know you like Kingdom of Heaven, right?
Love
And
Kingdom
that's 2005.
Mm-hmm.
You had said that was like your last favorite Ridley Scott movie,
I would say so. One of my guilty pleasures is Prometheus. I do love that movie.
That's a cool one.
It is, but from a technical film standpoint, I would say this might be his best since Kingdom of Heaven in 2005.
Theatrical cut.
Yeah, well, no. We're gonna.
What's going on with that? Explain.
So it's kind of funny because I feel like Ridley Scott has two movies that suffered heavily from the theatrical cuts. The first one being Blade Runner, which I'm sure everybody that likes movies could agree with. But Kingdom of Heaven suffered drastically from the theatrical cut, which the director cut being one of my favorite movies. So I think seeing this movie being another Ridley Scott medieval movie, it kind of threw me off. I was like, there's no way you're going to be better than Kingdom of Heaven, but totally different movie, different style of movie. And like I said earlier, I thought it really delivered and hit all of its marks.
Is Kingdom of Heaven about the Crusades?
It is about the Crusades, which kind of funny how it ties into this movie.
Yeah,
I thought that this could almost be a unconnected prequel to Kingdom of Heaven. Based on time period, so...
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say it right now. I'm not a huge fan of Matt Damon or Ben Affleck, but I would say with Ben Affleck, it's more about his choices than his actual talent level as a filmmaker and an actor. He's a great actor, but I don't really love the movies that he picks.
He has been involved with some stinkers.
Yeah. With Matt Damon, it's much more of him as an actor. I just don't really find him that compelling or interesting. But every once in a while, he's due for a really good one where he just kind of solidifies you have to respect Matt Damon.
Yeah, you do. I mean, he's been around for so long and he has been involved in great projects. But I think it's funny because the thing that when I always think of Matt Damon is I go to Team America World Police.
In our group chat that we have, I definitely remember that you sent us that picture earlier this week. I feel like I didn't give it enough love in the group chat, but that was hilarious.
So,
have you guys seen Good Will Hunting?
I have seen that movie.
Yeah. So this is the second movie that they've written together since then.
Yeah, I saw in an interview that I was watching in preparation for this that they wrote Good Will Hunting. I almost said hinting. They wrote Good Will Hunting together because they were just broke actors at the time who lived together and they didn't have anything else really going on at the time. So they kind of just tried to create an opportunity for themselves, and we all know how that worked out. They won an Oscar for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they just said that they had never really had time again after that movie to just sit down and do it. But now they're at a point in their careers where, you know, they're a lot more established, and they wrote this with they co-wrote it with this lady. Well, I know you guys have
her
name,
name
right?
was Nicole Hollowfencer, I think. That's how you pronounce it. But anyway,
Yeah, we're probably messing that up. But I know they wrote that with her, and they produced it, and I know that they got Ridley Scott on board, and then Ridley Scott in turn got Jodie Comer and Adam Driver on board. Yeah, this is just a really cool movie.
That's like the bouncing back on this year. Ridley Scott's drops. Like, I was more excited for House of Gucci than I was this movie initially, and I don't know.
And now
why.
who knows how you're gonna feel after
Yeah.
watching House of Gucci, right?
I kind of feel like now it'll be the opposite. Like the one I was excited for might be not as good. I don't know why. Lately, after like looking back at it, I was like, maybe it's just because it's a simpler concept. I might not be. It's like it's not going to be as good, I think. But I hope I'm wrong. But that was the movie I was excited for this year for Ridley Scott.
This movie has like a lot of like dread and melancholy, and I feel like maybe that's why the trailer, when you see it this many times and the subject matter of the film, it's not an easy film to market, and it's definitely not an easy film to sell. You know, medieval is basically like barbaric times. An awful crime happens in this film. But yeah, like House of Gucci just is like so much fun, right? When you're watching it, and the accents, and Jared Leto and the prosthetics, and I think Lady Gaga is attempting to do an Italian accent. It seems very Russian from I guess we'll see. I think what we're trying to say is we're learning to not doubt a master.
for real.
Yeah. Ridley Scott definitely deserves his respect, and it's not like I'd never give it to him, but this is just really a return to form for him.
I was really appreciative of this movie because, I mean, going in, I think everybody pretty much knows, you know, what the plot of this movie is and what it's going to be about, which is something that I kind of look negatively about before going into movies. Like, I don't know. I like
Something being so obvious.
I like to be surprised. I do.
Yeah.
But where this movie is really, its strong points, honestly, are the acting. It's not, the story is great, even though, you know, most people probably already know what's going to happen, but the acting was phenomenal. I thought all actors did a great job. The casting was incredible. I really thought Ben Affleck delivered.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck did a great job.
I've already been seeing the buzz about best either acting or supporting actor
And-
for Ben Affleck in this. What do you guys think about that? Could you see that happening?
I could see it as a supporting actor for sure, and I could see her, Jodie Comer, the lead actress. I could see her being up too. She really took over the whole second half of the film.
Yeah, she definitely carries this film in that third act. The movie takes place in like 3 chapters, and it's told from 3 different point of views. Kind of got that like Rashomon style going on. The movie's also 2.5 hours long.
It is long.
Did it feel like it dragged at all for you guys?
Honestly, not so much. And I thought
so.
Did you think so?
You thought so a little bit? Go
I
ahead.
thought,
Let's go with that first.
Sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
I thought like, because it's like 2 hours and a half, right?
I
That
think
like
it was
the runtime?
225, and then with credits and everything. So
I feel
it's
like
220.
maybe like 30 minutes of it could have been cut off. I don't hate the 30 extra minutes, but I'm just saying after I was like, oh, because it's a retelling of the same story a lot. And I know there's certain things, little details that were different in between the 3 stories. And maybe that's why they had to redo certain scenes like step by step. And then like, I just wanted to show you this small little difference, which ends up meaning a lot. But then I felt like there was maybe better ways to cut time on that. But I didn't hate it. I'm just saying I did think it dragged a little too long for me. Those 30 extra minutes was like, okay.
Yeah. I would say I didn't think that it dragged on at all, but I could see what you mean about the I wouldn't say 30 minutes, but I would say maybe 10 to 15, because I feel like a lot of what you're talking about is still like very crucial to the film, and like the small little differences of how one character saw the situation as to another. I know Nate was talking about, we're not really going to get into spoilers with this episode, but there is like one specific scene where Jodie Comer is running up the stairs, and in one version of the scene she takes off her shoes, and like in the other version of the scene it kind of just happens because she's running away and they slip off, and like just the small little differences like that. But I think maybe like the war scenes, you don't really need to see those from 2 perspectives, because it was basically the truth in both retellings of the story. let's just say it now that it's told in 3 parts, and it's told in the first version of the story is Matt Damon's version, and his character's name is Jean de Carouge. He plays a squire who is fighting under King Charles. You know, they're campaigning all through Europe, just trying to grow the kingdom, I'm guessing, right? I think they said it takes place in the 100-Year War, that sucks. Sorry you were born in that time. That's awful. This is a true story, and I know that Jean de Carouge was just like a war-hungry guy. Like, this is just like his whole life, and what he like really loved doing was fighting in war. Matt Damon is this character. Just gonna give him his respect straight up. This is a good movie for him. I thought he played that character very well. He's a complicated dude.
Yeah, he is.
He really is. Yeah, because he's very pathetic, but he's also like a great warrior. So you like have to respect him. But Ben Affleck, who plays Count Pierre in this movie, just no love for this guy. Like from the very first time they see each other, like it's this small little thing where, you know, I'll get to you right now, where knights have to like bow to their like overlord, right, and like give their fealty to him. Yeah. And as soon as Matt Damon tries to do it, Ben Affleck's instantly like, get closer to me, and it just is like gives you the dynamic that's going to play out for the whole rest of the movie. Go ahead, Ray.
And I just think, is that because he disobeyed his orders in the first scenes that we see, is that why there's an animosity between them two, or is that scene where he's kissing him before?
It's after.
It's after, and I think that animosity starts from there, because later we end up seeing when he's talking to Adam Driver's character, which is Jacques, right, Legris. He tells him that like he disobeyed me, and so and he's like, and he's trying to save him. Adam Driver's character is trying to like convince him that like, oh well, he's just a good soldier. He's just really aggressive, really brutal.
Yeah, he's very headstrong. Like we're saying, he's a complicated dude. He's got a lot going on. I know he's like the son of like a very respected knight, and they've been the fort that they live at. His father and like many generations before them have been captaining this fort. So like he kind of is also somewhat entitled of a character. He believes like these things belong to him by birthright, even though, I mean, you serve a king, you have no like rights. You know, it's whatever the king wants, and yeah, so the story's told through his perspective in the beginning, and we see that he's a squire who wants to become a knight, and then he marries Jodie Comer's character to try to like build his prestige and get his clout up.
He needs an heir, honestly.
Yeah, he needs an heir. That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I thought that his character was really interesting from his point of view, because from his point of view, you could see that, or he thinks that people value what he does for the country. They value his fighting capability and the fact that he is very strong when it comes to battle. But then you can see from other people's point of view, people don't really care about knights and that kind of stuff. Like, Matt Damon in this movie is not very well versed in politics.
No.
And you can see how that, has an effect on him and his standing with, the Count. He just doesn't really know how to talk to people. You can see that he's childish at some points. He has loud outbursts, and he doesn't really know how to contain his emotions.
Yeah.
And I think that, they, from Count Pierre's point of view and everybody else's point of view, he doesn't really fit in to what they're trying to do. So,
do you guys want to talk about Ben Affleck's character, or do you guys want to talk about Adam Driver's character first?
I had one little small thing that I learned right before when I was researching, that Ben Affleck's character was supposed to be Adam Driver. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, and then once Ridley Scott got involved, then Ben Affleck was like, oh, I'll be the supporting character in the movie, because he was working on another movie that he's in. So just because of time
it actually worked out better for him to have a lesser role.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. It'd be a way different movie. So do you know if Adam Driver would have played Count Pierre, or you just know that Ben Affleck was going to play Jacques?
Exactly. That's all that I read that it said, which made me think, I wonder who would have been Ben Affleck's character.
Well, hey, things usually work out the way they're supposed to, right?
I can't see anybody else playing that character, so I'm happy that he landed the role.
What do you think? Should we do Ben Affleck's character first?
Since we're talking about him.
He's my favorite.
Yeah.
in a horrible way.
I think one way to describe Matt Damon's character, honestly, in this movie, is that he was a cuck. This guy was just
a beta.
Beta
really was.
cuck. And Ben Affleck, Count Pierre with the page boy bleach blonde hair.
Yeah.
Giga Chad. Giga Chad.
The dyed eyebrows.
And the goatee with no mustache, right? He didn't look like anybody else.
I think I told Ro and Gus in the theater, I was like, all he's missing is puka shells.
Yeah.
I was like, he really is just your frat boy, typical. He was a douche, for real.
Yeah, and he plays Count Pierre, who like at this time in the film, when the film is starting, he just has like taken over for like the last warlord or whatever. I'm not really too well versed on these politics.
Yeah,
right?
I think that in France, everybody like they're counts and they report directly to the king.
Yeah,
and they're spread over through different provinces or whatever.
And we know it's a bit of nepotism because he's the cousin of King Charles,
exactly.
Who that character is also pretty good in this movie.
That character is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ben Affleck is just Giga Chad, and he hates Matt Damon's character. I know he says at one point like he's just so boring. He has no personality.
He finds him boring, and that's when like how I was saying he doesn't really fit into the whole politics of everything. Matt Damon's character, Carouge, he doesn't know how to communicate with people. He'd rather stay barred up in his house and then just waiting for the next war to go fight.
It's really the only thing he cares about, honestly. He's not good at politics. He's not very helpful in any other sense of...
He's illiterate. He doesn't know how to speak to people that well.
Yeah. We also see later on that there's like a scene in the movie where he's gone for a while and Jodie Comer takes over as like the lord of the castle or the land, and things are going way better when she's in charge.
She fixes all of his mistakes. She gets people paying rent again.
Yep.
Like, so really fast while we're talking about this is something I wanted to bring up. When she is taking over for him and that family comes and pays her the 2 rents that they owed.
Yeah.
And they basically said, like, we have no problem. He just doesn't come get it from us.
Yeah.
Do you think he does that on purpose as, like, trying to give people a break? Or do you think he's just so inept at what he's doing that he just forgets to collect people's rent?
I would say he's inept.
You think
so?
so?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't... Yeah.
That's kind of how I took it, too. Like, he just... I mean, like I said, he is illiterate, and he's taking care of the finances of a small little province, honestly.
Because even based off of like Ben Affleck's character, the king, like when he starts talking to Adam Driver's character, he knows that the only reason he knows math is because he was trying to be in religion, and so he tried to study.
Yeah, so
most people do not know math at that time.
No, yeah.
So much less like balancing a book.
Like
you know
how to balance
I mean?
a book, yeah. Matt Damon, I think what you were saying with the whole him being inept just goes to show you like his entitlement, that he thinks like this is his like right. And he doesn't really deserve it at all, because all he is a good warrior. Like on a battlefield sense, he does belong like with the higher ups, but there's a whole other side to being in this, like not politics. What would you call it? Really, like social classes, right?
Yeah,
interacting
socially
with the different social classes. Like this is just not his bag and not what he's good at. And they say it's his best friend / rival, but I never really get this from them, that they were as close as they try to make it seem. Maybe they just didn't take the time to really give that relationship. But Adam Driver's character, Jacques Legris, who is also another squire, he is like the complete opposite of Matt Damon's character. And it kind of seems like Matt Damon is jealous of him, but honestly, Jacques is giving him a lot to be jealous of.
So one of the difference between their stories is who saves whose life, right?
Yeah, I think so, right?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they both saved each other's lives at one point.
At some point,
not?
and that's why they're like indebted to each other.
Which is why they think they're like good friends. And like I said in the one scene where Ben Affleck is talking to Adam Driver defends him. Like, well, he's just like that, you know? It doesn't mean he's a bad person.
True. You know what though? That how we're saying that the story is told in 3 parts. That scene is shown in Adam Driver's perspective.
That's true.
So it's like the truth according to Jacques Legris, the truth according to De Carouge, and then the truth according to Marguerite, which is Jodie Comer's character. But what you're referencing is during Jacques' truth, quote unquote. And so is that really what happened? Yeah. Because from Matt Damon's point of view, he's being down-talked and downplayed by Legris, and like Legris is in the Count's ear, and that's how come like he looks down upon him so badly.
Because one of the differences too was I noticed when it opens, when they're about to cross the river to go fight the other.
Yeah. That's a gruesome scene, by the way.
Yeah.
Like Matt Damon's character is the one that pushes because they knew they were supposed to wait. They didn't want him to go across. And in Matt Damon's backstory of it, telling it, he everybody just follows him because he's kind of like the leader. But then
Oh,
in
yeah,
Adam Driver's,
yeah.
he goes, well, if he can't go alone because he's gonna die. So
Yeah.
he's like, we all have to go for it. So again, kind of showing like I have his back like a friend. But again, who knows if it's true?
And then who
like
knows
you're
what is
saying.
the truth, right? Because there is certain sequences in this movie that you see twice, but then you don't see a third time. And
Yeah,
one
exactly.
person's point of view is considered the truth in all of this. But once we get down to like what is actually the truth, that war stuff doesn't really
Doesn't
matter
matter.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we never really get clarification on who was telling the truth. Is Matt Damon someone who could lead troops into battle and they would follow him, or is the charismatic Jacques the one who has to like, well, come on, he's gonna die if we don't go with him, and like they're willing to follow Jacques / Adam Driver.
The way that I look at it is, I mean, it does seem like they are friends. Like they do seem to kind of have each other's backs in battle in the beginning. So maybe there was a relationship there. But as the film progresses, there's a piece of land basically that kind of begins this whole quarrel between these two characters.
Yeah.
And you can see even from Adam Driver's like Legree's standpoint, his point of view, after it's taken and, Matt Damon basically tries to get it back and sues, you can see how upset he is about it. So if they were really close and good friends, would he really have cared that much? So I
Yeah.
think that maybe at the surface level they were friends, but as time kind of progresses, it does seem like they are out for each other's, like their personal benefits.
Yeah,
So-
it does. Their friendship definitely decays throughout
And
this
it
movie.
does turn into a full-on rivalry.
Yeah.
So
Because at first, Ben Affleck gifts that land to him because of the debt, and he's helping him with the debt, right? The one that belongs to Marguerite.
Yeah,
and
okay,
her
so
father.
let's set that up a little bit. So Matt Damon's character, he needs an heir, and he's trying to establish like his prestige and clout and just climb up the social ladder, right? He comes from a pretty like prestigious family on like a war sense. Like his
Exactly.
father was very respected, and the De Carouges, the fort that they've been captaining for generations, and so he's just trying to like establish himself. So he decides he's going to marry Jodie Comer's character, Marguerite. And they mentioned that her father was like a traitor to the crown.
yeah, he's
right?
basically doing it at an expense.
Yeah, all for his dowry. He's trying to get a good dowry out
He's
of it.
basically so desperate to get an heir and get land and climb up the social ladder that we're talking about that he's willing to marry a traitor's daughter, which is something like we were talking about in the political world was looked down upon.
Yeah, and it is looked down upon at this point. I mean, I wouldn't say they're looking down on Jodie Comer, but her family overall.
The acts of her father.
The
which
acts of her
back
father.
then, women are women. They didn't think that,
Sadly, she's a piece of property to her father,
Exactly.
and then to Matt Damon. She doesn't really get a say in any of this. And yeah, how you're saying it's to his expense. Like he kind of picked the wrong family to marry into because it turns out that this piece of land that Alvaro is referencing, it was kind of the deal breaker for the wedding. Like this is a very awkward scene too. It's like as they're getting married, Matt Damon's like, "Hold up, pull up the contract. Didn't you say that this piece of land was going to be my dowry?" And we realized that he had to sell it to the Count to pay off his debts, and that the Count in turn gives it to Adam Driver's character as like a just a gift of
a
friendship.
We
And
saw that scene too because Adam Driver goes talk to the Jodie Comer's
Father,
dad,
yeah.
father in that scene, and he's like they're beating up one of like the people
Yeah,
that like a
just-
servant of his.
as we're saying, seeing it through the different perspectives, you see the truth of what's really like playing out. And man, Adam Driver's so good in this movie.
yeah, he was really good.
Yeah, I
He's
want
the
to talk
worst,
about him
but
a little
he's
bit.
really
He's
yeah,
terrible.
Yeah,
really good.
I mean, he's not a good dude. It's impossible to root for him. He gets what's coming to him, but great performance.
The only reason I think they're close is bouncing back to what you were saying, Nate. At that time, it was like a hierarchy, and everybody had to like agree to work for the king. And because there's a scene where they finally talk after not having talked for a while, Matt Damon's character and Adam Driver, and he's like, Adam Driver says something around like the people who work for the king shouldn't be fighting something. I'm butchering it.
Yeah,
but it
they
was
need
like,
to be united to serve the king.
in hard times
Yeah.
like this. And I guess it's like the same thing of like, because there's a lot of wars going on, then the Crusades are about to happen, so like tension was very high around it. Because it's like 1830, I
It
believe,
was like 13.
or 13.
13.
13.
13.
I'm
18,
sorry.
imagine.
Yeah, it was like
13.
1380s, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie does jump around a lot time-wise.
And what
Somewhat confusing.
I know that we had talked about it. Do you think that could be? I didn't think that the editing was super on par this movie. I thought the editing was pretty choppy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because of the whole we're telling this from different perspectives, so we're just kind of like cut, because there were a lot of like a scene that happened with Matt Damon, you'd get cut off of what happened at the end, and then maybe somebody else's perspective, you'd get the resolution of that scene from their perspective. But I felt that the editing was very choppy.
Do you feel like that on a scene-by-scene basis, or you're saying like the overall
No, I think
storytelling?
on a scene-by-scene basis.
Yeah,
Interesting.
me personally, I didn't think a lot of scenes bled very well together. If that makes sense. And I mean,
It's kind of awkward from where they like from a storytelling perspective,
Yeah.
right? Is that what you mean,
Like, you
or
know,
is that what
sometimes-
you guys are getting at, like the storytelling perspective of how they chose to edit it?
So sometimes, when we've made videos for the stuff that
Yeah.
we do.
Oh,
I
easily the same thing that we're
hard-
comparing.
I like hard cuts because
Yes.
it's just kind of like it gets people's attention. But it's like they cut it the same way as I would cut a small like montage video.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I guess because that's the way the progressing is, like it's their thoughts, it's playing. It just seems sometimes where you were done something and the next scene was there's no bleeding. It didn't make it seem very nice. It was like very obviously a cut.
If you're looking for editors on your next movie, call Ro.
Yeah, right.
He obviously knows what he's talking about.
I saw this movie 2 times before we're doing this, and they give you like the year breakdown of like 1 year later, and then they show you the year from like scene to scene. But even now, I still am not sure how long that movie really took, like the span of the movie. I don't know.
I know it took place in the 1380s, right? And like
1380s.
somewhere between 1383 and like 1387.
Something like that. I think it even hit 88 at one point.
Yeah, I think a good thing is that what they do with Adam Driver in multiple movies is when they show that time has passed. He usually starts with like a mid-length haircut, and then halfway through his hair is like
He's got
lot
the flow
longer by the
going.
shoulders, and then you're like, okay, I can tell some time has passed. Go ahead, Ro.
I think 1380 is where it starts, and then I know there's one of the wars that's like around 1385. It was just a small, quick scene in Matt Damon's flashback, and like I'm not exactly like maybe I'd have to see it again, but I'm not too sure how long it lasts. Like if it's a 10-year thing, maybe it goes all the way up, like you said, because 2 years later it says he dies in the Crusades. So
Yeah.
when did the Crusades start? That's like the only way I could really figure out how long this whole story is.
On a historical end, I didn't really look up anything on this. Did you guys?
No, because
No.
I mean, I'm not even sure. I mean, I know it's a historical movie that actually took place, and it's based on the book "The Last Duel: A True Story of Trial by Combat in Medieval France" by Eric Jager. But I'm not sure how historically accurate is it. I don't know. So I'm curious on how much of the filling in they did with stuff.
One interesting thing I seen is that Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, when they were writing this movie, the reason that they got the other writer was because they had mentioned that so much of history is only written like from a man's perspective. So like this story, even though it's true and like Jodie Comer is truly the main character of this story, and like the whole thing like lives and dies on what happens to her, literally. I didn't even mean to say that. There's really not much of a historical like context for her side of the story, because history is written by men at this time, and for the most part now
It's his story,
still-
not her story.
Oh my god! Yeah, we might have to cut that one out.
But
Yeah, but damn it, he threw me off my train of thought. That was so. Anyways,
I'm sorry.
That they had to bring in this other writer, like a woman writer, because they didn't feel like they could properly tell the story from her perspective, because so much of it was just told from Jacques and Jean's perspective,
Right.
Which just kind of goes with the whole theme of this movie of like them not believing her, or that she's kind of an afterthought, even though she's the catalyst for this whole thing.
Which is even interesting because the person who takes her side and is supposedly fighting for her, he's not even really fighting for her cause. He's
her
fighting
husband is fighting for her own pride, really.
Yeah, he's fighting for the benefit of himself.
And
so-
there's one scene in this movie that just really cements that, like, there is no, well, out of the guys or the men, there is no good men in this movie.
There are not.
Because, can we even talk about this without
Without
spoiling
spoiling
the
it.
movie? I think it's pretty well known out there what happens is that Adam Driver commits sexual assault against Jodie Comer's character. It was awful to watch. I really
Yeah.
didn't want to see it
I hate
once,
that
let
we had
alone
to
a
see it
second
twice.
twice.
You had to see it twice.
Yeah, but from Matt Damon's perspective, when he's being told the story of what happens, we see the story cuts off in a very convenient way to make him look good and look heroic. And then when we see it from Marguerite's perspective, which is the like flat out truth, which I thought was interesting in the edit. This was a cool editing choice, is that it was the truth according to De Carouge, the truth according to Legris, and then when it was the truth according to Marguerite De Carouge, it cut out and it just showed the word truth, because this is what actually happened. And when we see what happened in her perspective, Matt Damon just does something to me that is like completely irredeemable at that point.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say it, but
oh jeez,
like
it's
just
almost
completely
worse.
awful. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about worse, but there's no better or worse in this case. It was almost as if it happened again, for a third time.
No, that's
it
what I
was,
mean.
it was just interesting because from Matt Damon's perspective, like you were talking about, you can see that he really thinks that he's a true gentleman to her, and like he cares about her and whatever. But you see from her perspective what you're talking about. She is a piece of property to him.
Yeah, you feel so bad for her.
And like he doesn't feel bad at all for what happened to her. He feels like it happened to him.
Yeah.
Like Legris committed this act against him, and he's the one that he's the victim. Which that's just not the case.
And Legris tells her after it happens, like, don't tell him anything because he'll be really mad at you. In terms of like that's how stuff like that was seen in those ages. Like you're obviously lying,
and still now too. This
Yeah,
movie is
still now.
very relevant to today, honestly.
That is
for
what
being
I
about a 1300s movie.
Yeah, you feel this movie. I feel like this is a very important movie, and I had seen that in a lot of reviews. Like this movie's very important. This movie, and when I see stuff like that, it almost kind of turns me off because
You don't want to be told something's important, right?
And
You
like
want to feel
stuff
that on
like
your own.
this topic, it's a very serious and sensitive topic. And I was worried that the movie might just throw it in your face and have no substance. But the way that they were able to frame it all and the way that it presented itself, they did a phenomenal job with it, I thought.
Yeah, this is a tough movie overall. Not for if you're squeamish in a violent sense, or like you have any kind of history or like trauma of like sexual assault, be easy going into this movie, or maybe just be aware that this movie's got a lot of like really awful shit in it. To be honest, but
it's uncomfortable.
This is an awful time in history. I'm very glad I don't live in this time.
Real.
I always think that when I watch medieval like shit. Oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't have to live in this time.
For real.
Yeah, right. I think another cool little interesting thing was that the plague was going on as well, right?
What's going on? That's how De Carouge had lost his first wife and son, I believe, right? Was from the
I
plague?
think so.
I think it was.
Yeah. Just overall shitty time. Yeah, man. Just.
Can we give a big shout out to Jodie Comer though?
Yes.
I thought she did an absolutely phenomenal job.
I have not seen her in anything else. I heard she was in Free Guy, which I have not seen.
Yeah, I think she's in something else too.
I know Ridley Scott said he was watching TV just looking for good shows, and he's seen this show called, I think it's Killing Eve.
Okay.
I might be wrong about that, but I think she was in 3 seasons of that, and he was like, "Who is this? She's phenomenal."
Yeah, because this was the first thing I've ever seen her in, and I'm a fan. I'm very.
I would watch it. I would watch anything else.
She's gonna be in Ridley Scott's next movie after the House of Gucci, which is called Kit Bag.
Interesting.
On Letterboxd, she's on the cast already. So
that's cool.
Unless that changes, but
I'm down to see. I mean, Ridley Scott has my attention again.
You said she brought her in, and Adam Driver, right? Did you read that?
Yeah. So Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, they helped co-write it. They produced it. And then they got Ridley Scott on board. Ridley Scott, in turn, got Jodie Comer and Adam Driver on board. Yeah, so he found her, and he didn't find Adam Driver. He casted Adam Driver.
He was like, I want her in this movie. Once he got involved, it says on here that she's in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, but I don't.
I mean, maybe she's just in the background or something. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's over my head for sure.
That's cool though. That means she's worked with Adam Driver before. I had seen that during these assault scenes that she said that Adam Driver was like really like just gentle and kind and like very aware of the situation and like just try to make it as easy as possible for her because these are very uncomfortable.
Thinking about that, I could not imagine filming.
Yeah. She said that Ridley Scott really handled this with care. Like when they were about to film these scenes, he told everybody like, stop what you're doing, drop your shit, everybody get out. And like, I just want to have them, me, and like, all the necessary people. I know they have these like intimacy coordinators. I don't know if you guys know about that, but they have someone who like helps make this like the sex scenes look real, while at the same time not crossing any like real life boundaries between the actors. I mean, it can't be easy to film these kind of scenes.
Usually
These
they
are
say
so
it's like
awkward,
a carefully
right?
placed pillow.
Yeah, they'll do like
that.
a carefully placed pillow, or like I've seen sometimes they'll have them in like nude colored underwear or something like that, and then like edit it out.
Right.
Yeah, just but that Ridley Scott really handled this with care, and Adam Driver
yeah.
did too.
And I will even give them respect on those scenes weren't super graphic in
That's what I was
terms of
gonna
like
say.
showing much, nudity or anything.
They definitely don't take like the Game of Thrones route.
More uncomfortable than it needed to be.
It's like it was a lot of face. I noticed.
was.
It wasn't
A lot of emotion,
a lot
like
of
showing
emotion.
the emotion of it instead of just the like brutality of it.
And the difference between, because you do get the scene 2 times. You get it from Adam Driver's perspective, and then how it really happened from Judy Marguerite's perspective. And the difference in aggression that Adam Driver showed in those two scenes was something that I don't know. I thought they did a really good job with directionally. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I just get uncomfortable thinking about those scenes because
tough.
I'm honestly, I really love Adam Driver as an actor, and I don't think as far as the movies I've seen him in, I've never seen him play like such a piece.
This evil of a piece of shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really like unsettling for me because, as I told you guys, I'm not the biggest Affleck and Damon fan. So like for me, going into the movie, and I regret this now, I was like, oh, I'm team Adam Driver. I hope he's innocent.
Yeah.
I hope he didn't do anything, you know. But then it's just he's an irredeemable character.
And he thoroughly believes throughout a lot of the movie that he didn't do anything wrong, which makes it worse.
He's very flawed. I want to get back to him a little bit because he really owns this fucking movie. He was buff too. Did you guys notice that? There's one scene where he like took his shirt off. There's slight spoilers here. There's like a funny orgy scene that takes place in the movie because like we said, Giga Chad, Ben Affleck, and Adam Driver, these dudes are they're slanging the pipe in medieval times to all these different ladies.
To do when you're that rich, I guess.
I guess, right? And you just see Adam Driver take his shirt off, and you see his back and his arms. Like, this dude is jacked. I know he's like a pretty big dude. I think he's over 6 feet.
Yeah, he looks like he's.
And I know he served in the military as well. So like, it was kind of cool to see him, other than Kylo Ren, to like be he was a knight in Star Wars, right? He was a Knight of Ren, and now he's a knight in this movie too. But just to see him in like the action world, even though it's not really an action movie, but I thought he looked badass when he was fighting next to Matt Damon.
He's way too buff to not have ever seen him fight besides in the beginning. Like he's always, once Ben Affleck picks him up, he's always just and Matt Damon's character brings that up a lot. Like I go and fight, I go to battle.
Yeah.
You kind of just sit here and act like you do. And you look like this kind of like pretty boy type of like look.
I know that Adam Driver says that his character comes from humble beginnings in the beginning of the movie. Like he had to like earn the name or like make a name, like the Legrees are somebody, because you mentioned earlier that like he's good with numbers, and he also knows how to speak Latin, and it's because he was trying to become a monk when he was younger, and then at some point he was recruited into being like a squire and all that, which is probably a way better choice.
Yeah,
He'd have
definitely.
that stupid Edgar haircut that all the priests had in this
friar
movie.
look,
The friar haircut.
Because it seems like in medieval times when people do go into the church, they just have no other option.
Yeah.
So.
But he's like a very well-educated character. He's very charismatic. He is a good fighter, even though they kind of hold him back, and you don't get as much. Yeah, you don't get as much fighting from him. But you see, he holds his own, and he saved Matt Damon's life, or Matt Damon saved his life. They probably saved each other's, right?
They were both in the front, you know what I mean? And for those armadas that were fighting, so that signifies a lot for them to be able to, like, they were destined by, I think it's Ben Affleck's character, like they're the ones that set up that type of stuff. They're in the front, so obviously they're the best of the best for them to be leading these militias, armadas, whatever you'd want to call them.
And I didn't know, I had no clue that squires were this important. Did you guys?
No.
Like, from my knowledge, which is very little, like, I guess my main point that I'm referencing here would probably be like Disney's Sword in the Stone, is like when King Arthur was like a young boy and he was a squire, like I thought squires were like medieval caddies, you know what I mean, to like knights.
Right.
Like they just carried all their shit and like, give me my sword, go get me my lance if I'm gonna do a duel or whatever. But these guys are like very high up in social class, right?
I don't know exactly, the hierarchy of medieval times, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know that the squires are below knights, and that's usually them trying to become a knight. And I wonder if do they usually have that much fighting experience like they did, or is this just because there's so much battle going on that they need everybody that they can get? I'm not sure.
Yeah, for a squire to even think that he would be like the rightful captain of a fort was like kind of blowing me away. I was like, why is this guy acting like he's basically on the JV team, but he's leading the fights? He thinks he deserves to be the captain. Right. I had no clue that.
And you see, even from both perspectives of the opening scene, the opening battle that we get, they both lead the charge. Like from whatever perspective, exactly.
So where are the knights? Right. You know, that was just kind of throwing me off. And then Adam Driver's character lives like a much more privileged life because he's all buddy with Count Pierre, Ben Affleck's character.
Became his accountant.
Does he even fight anymore? I don't feel like he does, right? The only time you see him, you see that battle that they went into together as friends, and then they get separated, and he basically becomes like the Count's accountant / right-hand man / playboy friend that they hang out together.
Because the king can read too, right? Because in the beginning,
he's the Count. He's not
the Count. Sorry, he can read too, and that's why he at first tosses it to somebody. And he's like, "Oh, you can't read."
He's like, "Of course you can't read."
Yeah, but Adam Driver can, and then that's kind of like when he gets more impressed with him. He kind of like, "Oh, this guy's really smart." And I thought that was funny. That scene right before it's when his wife is pregnant, Ben Affleck, his wife.
Oh, yeah. He says they're having like their 8th child
in 12 years.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So then she's like, she usually be like the host of the party and stay up really late.
And drink you under the table.
And then she got to go to bed. And as soon as she goes to bed, she's like, now the real party can start.
And then he's like fucking wenches and like having wine and
debauchery.
Yeah, the debauchery ensues between the boys. Very bro down movie, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is like frat boys. And the Count and Adam Driver are like frat boys.
That's what I think they did a good job of. Boys will be boys type deal. And then you see what that kind of behavior turns into. Like
that's what I mean about this movie being like so relevant to today. Like shit hasn't changed since the 1300s and even older than that.
And that ties into like what I know we talked about it, that there'd be certain scenes where they were talking how you think they talked back then, and all of a sudden the Boston accent would come out.
Oh, yeah. How did you guys feel about that overall? I mean, I know we kind of talked about it, but like walking out of the theater, I feel like my opinion is slightly changed on that, is that I guess it's better for them to just say fuck the accents and not go for it, and instead of having them try to just do these stupid French accents that are going to sound bad for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's true. Maybe that's just the way that they approached it too. I know that there's like dialogue coaches, right? And it's just really hard.
Maybe Adam Driver, I would say, did the best job of trying. I wouldn't necessarily call it an accent, but having like a royal way of speaking.
It was weird because, I mean, like, whatever you're going to do, just decide upon it.
Yeah.
Because you have, like, not everybody, but Matt Damon, I felt like, did the worst job about this. Is he'll start a sentence with ye old type accent, and then he just finishes with he's just speaking like a normal person. So, and I feel like some characters did a good job with their, and like we're talking about, they aren't even French accents. It's the whole, oh, I am the king. Like,
yeah, it's just that the same thing they'll do in like Greek movies or Roman movies where they give them just like this generic English type of accent.
They basically just make them sound pompous and then
call
just
them sound like assholes.
Yeah. Okay, but whatever.
Like you said, they could have even at least gone with let's talk old English then. But they were just like, no, well, it'd just be like a mixture.
I know I said that, but now that I'm thinking about it, that wouldn't make sense because it's French.
It's French, exactly. Like they didn't even.
I did say that. I was like, they should just go with like an old school way of talking and let's just call it that.
So my favorite thing from the things I read is how doth ye like ye apples?
yeah. I think Adam Driver and Jodie Comer definitely did the best job of holding up the accents or like the performance. It doesn't sound good to call them accents because they really weren't. I'm just glad they didn't slip into their straight Boston accents. You know what I mean? I was like, oh no, are they about to go stop at Dunkin' Donuts? Or
get some munchkins.
Talk about the Red Sox, like. But it makes sense for them to not do it because you're gonna ask Matt Damon and Ben Affleck to do something they probably can't do. I do think that Adam Driver probably could have done it because I think that highly of him, that he would be able to convincingly do the accent. And I'm having a kind of a hard time remembering exactly how Jodie Comer sounds, but I did feel like at no point she slipped into whatever her irregular accent is. I know she's
British.
She's British? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Maybe that's why, because she already kind of sounds like that.
She's not American. She's probably better at being able to concentrate on just
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
the
just
type
sure
of
Ben
French.
Affleck and Matt Damon were just like, just don't say anything Boston-y. Don't say anything Boston-y this whole time.
Exactly.
And she definitely, I feel like she did not speak as much as everybody else either.
No,
She
I mean,
she had a lot of good, I don't know, like body acting. Her facial expressions were phenomenal. And that's what, in one of the scenes that they show 2 different times, I guess it's 3 different times, you can see the way that she reacts to something that happens to her when, you know, the kiss from Legree. And I really like that part.
yeah. True. That's a good point. I really like that point.
Just the way that she's able to move her eyes and show, like, you know, brief hints of a potential emotion. I thought she did a really good job.
Hold on, bro. What you're mentioning is like the different scenes of like kissing Legree, because this is a very pivotal scene in the movie. This is kind of important to talk about. Is that it's the first introduction between Legree and Marguerite, and it's kind of like what pushes the whole rest of the movie forward. And then to see it from those different perspectives, I did think that was very important, because when you see it from Adam Driver's perspective, you're like, oh shit, like I could see. Man, I don't want to say I could see, because I don't want to side with him at all on this, but
yeah,
it does seem a little more like she was into him.
She gives him a smile. She kind of looks back at him a few times, but you can see when it comes to her perspective, there's none of that.
And from Matt Damon's perspective, it doesn't really help her either. Matt Damon's perspective doesn't do anything to make her look very good in this movie.
I don't think so. Matt Damon.
It's all about him.
Exactly.
He's
And
such a
that's the whole
baby.
problem with him, even up until the end of the film. And the truth is, it's all about him. He really is a big fucking baby in this movie.
Yeah, there's that one scene in the trailer where she tells him, like, you're not fighting for me, you're fighting for your pride. And, like, I might have to die because of your pride.
Exactly. Which, yeah, the fact that he kept that secret from her was...
Yeah, that was ruthless.
Found out
Did
at
you have
4.
something to say, Ro? I'm sorry.
No,
I
I
think
was
I
just
cut you
gonna.
off.
It's okay. It was a little sidetracking. It was just the next thought that I wanted to talk about. Another point. And I was talking about the king. I don't remember if he keeps a good accent, but I was just saying.
No,
in
I
general,
really think he had the worst one.
Yeah, in general though, because I just wanted to bring him up so we could talk about him, and he definitely was really funny in this movie.
So what did,
He definitely was.
What
He
did you guys
definitely
think about
facial
him? Because I do want to. I have a little
expressions.
something
What did I
do
think
wanna
about
talk
him?
He was a young king. That's why
He was weird, right?
He was hamming it up for sure. Like this actor, I don't have the actor's name in front of me.
His
but-
name was
Alex
I have it.
Lothar?
Yeah.
Okay,
Alex Lothar.
he was having fun. Like
Yeah, he
that's how I would
was.
put
So
it. Like he was
yeah.
just having fun.
In,
Go ahead.
In my research, I found out that the actual King Charles, like in history,
It was Charles VI.
Charles VI, he was mentally ill.
Oh.
And so he started to display those signs when he was younger, and then once he got a little bit older, he was like a straight up psycho, I guess. So-
I don't know if I like how they handled that.
So thinking about that, it made me think like, oh, when he's kind of goofing around, and when he like freaks out at the duel at the end, he's like, kill him, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
Wow, that's interesting.
it kind of changed the way that I saw that character.
Yeah, because I saw him as just like hamming it up and acting very campy. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, oh, he's just kind of like a flamboyant king, like very out there. I'm not a big fan of like boring kings.
Me neither.
Yeah, like I hate that.
They
I
have
think
to
that's
have a
the worst.
personality.
Yeah, so I really did enjoy that he was just hamming it up and
I did
having a
too.
really good time, and that he didn't. I don't know. I thought what was cool is that he like didn't even know the rules. He's like, duels aren't allowed. What the hell?
They're like, actually, sir,
It just hasn't happened in your lifetime.
Right.
Yeah, that was cool.
And yeah, the reason they do call this the last duel, I don't think we've talked about it, is this was the last sanctioned.
Trial by combat.
Exactly.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the last one that
And
they
if
ever
this
had in
is
France.
if the duel, I don't know how battle accurate like move by move this was, but if that duel in real life ended like it did in this movie,
That makes
I could
sense.
see why they'd be like, we shouldn't do this anymore. This is fucking
Absolutely.
gruesome.
The
Brutal.
guillotine's a better idea.
Yeah. Like let's just have it be clean and get it over with very fast.
Speaking of, so they did have, throwing it back a bit, they did have 2 options in how they wanted to handle this whole
Duel?
The duel. They could either duel or they could have they could have a trial by clergy, which is, the church. And I thought it was an interesting point in which they were basically saying to Adam Driver, you should go ahead and have this with clergy because they rape people all the time and they get away with it. So you're going to have a much better time getting away with this through clergy than risking your life.
Religion caught a stray in this film.
Yeah, and that's why, I don't know, it did touch on a lot of points that are still relevant nowadays.
I feel like that would, if you're a religious person, that's probably going to make you uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? But sorry, dude, it's fucked up truth. Is that if they had gone by this like religious trial or whatever, he would have got away with it because the church is obviously connected to the crown, and then the count is who. All right, Ben Affleck's character would have been like the judge.
That's what
for
he
the
said.
case,
And it's-
right? And you just see how like these things can totally just be swept under the rug and act like nothing happens because you're so well connected.
And I thought it was fucking crazy too, the fact that the person who's telling Adam Driver this information is a member of the clergy.
Yeah.
Like, he's in the church. He's like, "Oh, you're good, buddy. This happens all the time." It was horrible. It's a horrible truth.
And that's one of my favorite parts. Is fucked up. It's a fucked up part, but it's really funny. Is when Ben Affleck tells him like, "Oh, what are you worried about?" And he's like, "That's my cousin. The king is my cousin." Like the nepotism in this movie is also plays a big role. And like you said, it's stuff like this obviously happened way. I don't want to even say way more. It could probably happen just as much, but before it definitely was swept under the rug. Like, let's just get past this. And even the character, which is his mom, Matt Damon's mom.
Oh yeah, she plays a kind of important role in this
she
movie.
does.
Because she's
She's been through the same situation.
She's like, and I stayed quiet. And
Yeah.
it's just really sad to hear because I'm sure that was what the majority of it was.
And I liked what Marguerite had to say when the mother, played by Harriet Walker, she goes ahead and, Harriet Walker tells her, I've been through the situation too, and I kept my mouth shut. And Marguerite basically said, well, look at the price you had to pay for that.
Like, was it worth it?
Yeah, was it really worth
And
it?
she seems to be living a very unhappy life.
She's cold and she's bitter. And
yeah.
She said, "I'm alive." That's all she said.
Yeah, but
Which-
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, fuck.
Is-
how
is-
what do you even say about that, right? Like,
can you stay silent? No.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, and she wanted to speak her truth, and she felt like Legree had to pay.
one of my least favorite things, I guess, is that even her own, like, I guess you could call her like her own girlfriend, her own
best friend,
out to
right?
her, doesn't believe her,
Yeah,
and
it's just
like,
awful.
it just sucks because she said you called him attractive that one day when we were sitting there talking about him, and it's like
Even
so?
though the friend had also.
The friend is
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
person who said it first.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, he's handsome," and it's funny because Marguerite goes, "Yes, he's handsome and well liked, but my husband doesn't trust him."
Yeah.
She's not even all, that was sad.
and that's in her point of view, right? That's when we're looking at the truth. It's
Yeah, when we see the truth.
That was.
because that's when we don't get the scene where Adam Driver and her meet at the table, and then they start talking Latin. to
From
each
Adam
other.
Driver's perspective,
She was flirting.
It was just like the perfect little first date. Like, oh, you speak Latin? Oh, I speak Latin too. That's awesome. You like to read? Oh, me too.
One of my favorite things was that you said after you watched the movie, he's like, "Was this the only girl in the whole place to talk Latin?"
Yeah,
that was
right?
like, "Oh, I have to have her."
You know how Adam Driver's character came off? It was like Nacho Libre. Everything you just said is my favorite thing to do every day.
That's so true. So true.
Yeah. Adam Driver's character, I kind of wanted to get back to that. His fatal flaw is that, like, the way he saw the truth is, like, to him, that is the truth. And I don't know if that sounds, like, very obvious or it doesn't really sound like I'm saying anything, but it's just crazy to see how till the very end, he really did believe he didn't do anything wrong. Which is just fucking crazy to me.
Because he makes a statement when he's talking to Ben Affleck, and he was like, "Well, of course she denied it. She's like, she's a woman."
Of course she protests. She's a
She
woman.
protested, yeah,
And,
exactly.
like, that's just
just
fuck's
terrible.
awful.
It's like you said, like such great acting. I love Adam Driver, and that scene, it was so hard. Or in this whole movie, after a certain point, it was so hard to root for him because even in the beginning, when none of that has happened, I'm like, well, he is really smart. He is charismatic, and I was like, this makes sense that they casted Adam Driver for this. But then once all of the stuff that we see, the sexual stuff, and it just becomes really hard. And then, like you said in the beginning, it's like Matt Damon's character is kind of like a cuck, so it's kind of funny to make fun of him. We kind of were making fun of him.
Yeah,
in the
like
theater.
it was funny to see him like suffering. Like, damn, this dude's just getting cucked at every turn. Like, he got his land taken from him. He got like his title not taken from him, but he's not very well respected. Like, I think one of my favorite scenes is when he first becomes a knight, Matt Damon, and he goes to visit the count, and the count's just broing down with all the homies inside the not a pub, but what would you call it in those days? Like
Tavern?
Yeah, or like a dining hall or something like that. They're just getting down, having a good time. And Adam Driver, like, I think he like just wishes him well, like, oh, good luck on your trip or whatever. And Matt Damon's like, "Sir, for the second time, you have not mentioned me as sir." And it's just like, demanding that respect that no one's gonna give you. Like, if someone had did that to us, we would have just started dying, laughing in their face, like, sir, this
like,
guy wants us to call him sir.
You will call me a doctor.
Yeah,
It's like, okay.
right. And he has a couple of different moments in that movie where he just gets like, he just kind of embarrasses himself by trying to act like he's a big tough guy, even though he is.
He is. That's the
But
funny part.
he just can't manage in this world, where like they can get to him, like get into his head. He can't do anything but beat them up.
Ben Affleck flames him. He's like, "What are you gonna do? Sue me again?"
Yeah, because Matt Damon sues Ben Affleck's character for the piece of land.
And that was one of the things I wanted to touch upon. So he but because Jody's father owed, I guess you would call the count.
He had to pay his taxes, or he had to pay his. I don't know.
He had to pay his dues.
Yeah, he had to pay his dues, but this piece of land was the only way he could do that.
And then later, he screws him over by taking what should be rightfully Matt Damon's characters, right, and accounts, or puts Adam Driver as...
In charge.
What do they call it?
The captain?
Do you remember it? Is that what it is, captain? I thought it was a certain specific word that they call, the people who were... in charge of that piece of land. I forgot the exact verbiage. It's a really cool... I had never heard it up until this movie, and... I wonder if that's where the tension just grows so much higher. Because at first I feel like the dad sold off the land to the count to Ben Affleck. It kind of makes sense. He just gave it to him. He had to. But the other one, it seems very intentional. Ben Affleck was not only am I not going to let you have your dad's land, I'm going to give it to somebody I know you don't like.
Yeah, he's fueling the fire of... causing that rift between them.
It was I take it. He's basically "Oh, you're gonna sue me? Well, you're not gonna get what you want most. So I'm just gonna give it to this guy." Exactly. It was a big slap.
I was mentioning to you guys that Matt Damon had a few moments in this movie where he has his outburst, right, and he lets his attitude get the better of him. And this scene that Ro is mentioning, where Matt Damon travels I know he lives far from where I think the Count lives in Paris, right?
I honestly am not sure.
I know that he has to travel to Paris a couple different times, or he has to travel far whenever he wants to visit
Paris,
the Count.
It's because he's gonna go get paid for his time.
His dues. Yeah. But so when he goes to visit the Count, and of course Adam Driver's right on his side, and he's saying, "Yeah, what are you gonna sue me again?" And he's just getting it laughed at, and then they make him leave, and it just reminds me of of Al Pacino in Godfather 3. They're like, "Is this how you thought this was gonna go down?" And Matt Damon's like, "It's not what I wanted." It's just not going his way. It sucks for him.
He's so emotionally immature. It's ridiculous.
If there's nothing he could do, he's just getting laughed at. I had a good time watching this movie. What about you guys? I did too.
I thought it was really good. Like I said, I didn't think it was going to be the best going into it, and I was proven wrong. I'm happy about that.
I remember when I was talking to you, and I was like, 2 hours and 30 minutes. I was like, there's no way I could like this movie that much. And like I said, at most, I could think there's maybe 30 minutes of too much stuff that I was like, this dragged on too much. I know last week you talked about Lamb. There were scenes in Lamb where I was like, this is dragging too long. But in the Last Duel, just because I felt a lot of it was repeated. But also what you said.
It felt integral to me. I don't think you could really cut more than 10 minutes out of this movie. I know we had said in the beginning of this that we were going to really talk about indie movies mostly, but the way this is turning out at the box office kind of is now, because it's really bombing at the box office.
That reminds me of what you were saying, that there's no love for the middle type of movies. Usually it's there's the big Marvel hits, and then there's stuff like A24, and there's a cult following with A24 movies because
which we're part of.
Exactly. We're obviously, it's just being honest at this point. As soon as we see A24 on it, we're like, okay,
let's go
see it. Which I love that's a staple piece now. We know A24 might take.
We're season ticket holders to A24,
definitely. Yeah, and Neon.
True.
Yeah, and it's just weird that this movie has what you're talking about. Ridley Scott is, I gotta respect him. He has a lot of movies under his belt that I like, and there's been a lot that I haven't seen, but his name still doesn't draw a lot of people. Ridley Scott.
There's just no respect nowadays for these masters. No. How come him? Well, not necessarily him, because he's making this movie cost $100 million and it only made 4, and there's no way this movie's making its money back with the way that things are right now, the pandemic. I wanted to bring this up. This is a direct quote. Let me pull this up so I get it right. Is that, I think it was Deadline? Yeah, Deadline Hollywood. Attributed the underperformance to the 2.5-hour runtime, the limited number of show times because of the runtime, the subject matter being hard to market, and the 45-plus age demo not fully returning to theaters yet, and competition from the holdover No Time to Die and Carnage and things like that. So it was just it was just a perfect storm for this movie to kind of fail at the box office. This is what I was telling you guys, is that they don't make movies for adults anymore. And I know that kind of sounds funny, but yeah, it's either a big Star Wars, Marvel, Disney movie for children, and I enjoy those movies too, but And then there's only the cult movies. But where are these $100 million movie star movies at that are about like real shit like this?
No, I would agree with you. I mean, yeah, for real. This is it dealt with very mature topics. Like, even though, I mean, like, we had seen Titan, and there's some pretty mature things that happen in that movie.
Yeah.
This movie just has a different feeling.
So one of the things that I found interesting when I was looking at like stuff about this movie was that it says the start of pre-production was delayed after Disney acquired 20th Century Fox. The release date was set for Christmas 2020, but was pushed back to October 2021 as a result of a coronavirus pandemic. And then another thing tying to that says on March 13, 2020, production of this film was halted due to the coronavirus. Before that, filming in France was finished, and the production had moved to Ireland. Ridley Scott had already filmed for 4 weeks and had 1 hour of the movie completed during this time. So I think every other movie that's came out so far this month has been trying to be like, oh, this is a scary movie, right? And this is the one movie that we had on our list that we were going to review that not necessarily is anything to do with it being on October. And it made sense because it's been pushed. And there's a lot of movies that got pushed that we might talk about during this time because we're still in the midst of the pandemic. And it's just interesting to see like how much that played into it underperforming maybe, because it's like if that was one of the first movies, I know Tenet did like kind of good because it was the first movie that came like to the pandemic and the theaters had opened and some people just wanted to go watch it.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see that I didn't know it got pushed up until I started reading, you know, and maybe it's because it's in a month where people only are looking for scary stuff and it's this film about a very serious subject matter. And I also think that the trailer doesn't give out, you think it's about something and it doesn't, you wouldn't know unless you start reading, I think, like the reviews and stuff like that about what it really is about. So I don't know, maybe people are just kind of like, they're not okay with talking about this stuff.
I will say I'm glad it's not a 2.5 hour medieval courtroom drama. That would not.
That's the other thing is I wasn't really sure what to expect. Like, what were they going to show in the movie? So
yeah, this is one of those movies that just like chronicles many years of like a shitty time. I'm gonna keep saying that.
I'm happy that it did not come out at Christmas. This would be a terrible Christmas movie.
Yeah.
This would be a horrible Christmas movie. So
seriously.
Movies like this, I would say these are. There's dessert movies and there's vegetable movies, and this was a vegetable movie where it's not easy, but it's good for you. You know, you're getting an adult, like a very adult themed story. You're getting a director who's, I think he's 83 years old now.
He's
right?
almost 84.
Shit, that's fucking
and he
crazy.
pumped out a historical epic. Like
yeah,
and that's what sucks in terms of history. Like this movie had to come out for me to be aware of what happened to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you
Like,
would have never known, right?
and it's just really sad because we're almost 1,000 years after it happened, and
something
like,
crazy like that.
and
Yeah,
there's some type of justice to be able to know that it took this long, and the Me Too movement to happen to be like maybe we should, like, why does she have?
Let's
to
go
lie
back
about
and
that?
tell these stories about how this has been happening forever. This isn't just something that people talk about now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's start winding down a little bit. One thing I want to mention about this movie that we haven't even talked about, and I'm surprised that we haven't, is like really the looks of these characters. These are some crazy looking characters.
For real.
I'm glad we didn't spend the whole first hour just talking about that because I probably could have.
Yeah, easily.
Just like Titan, sick mullet
Love
in this
the mullet,
movie.
Yeah, what's up with the mullets nowadays?
Okay, so what I
mullets, too.
learned about the mullet and like the looks overall of the characters is that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, they were talking about how Ridley Scott is just like such a visual director, and that he had like watercolors that he had painted and just like historical images that he like kind of put their faces on to like, this is what you're gonna look like. And he picked Matt Damon's character to have this crazy mullet that just one reviewer, this is a fucking great joke, he was like, you could have put a Confederate flag behind Matt Damon's character and he looked like he would have fit into the Civil War.
Seriously.
But Matt Damon's character just has this crazy mullet
And the scar on his face.
and the scar on his face and like the facial hair. And I know that they said the mullet was just kind of like symbolized that he was this like such a war hungry dude and like so crazy about fighting that like he would just cut the sides of his hair off so he'd make sure his helmet would fit. And that like Ben Affleck, for instance, the reason he looks like so crazy with the bleached blonde hair,
It looks like
and
old
the
school
goatee.
Eminem.
Yeah, very Stan vibes,
Yeah.
right? Is that he wanted him to stand out like as royalty, that he didn't look like anybody else because he wasn't like anybody
that
else.
he
He was
definitely
above
did.
these people. Yeah, and I do think Ben Affleck was the standout performance of this one. Golf claps for Ben Affleck on this one. Just great performance. Understated as well.
Is the last movie that you liked him in, would you say, is The Accountant, that you liked?
Yeah. I it's not that that's like a great movie, but I just think that's a strong performance. I prefer my Ben Affleck understated. I don't like. I can't even really think of a movie right now where he's hamming it up, other than this one. But I do think that he still did a good job of not going too far and just being like completely outlandish.
He was more of a reserved, outlandish character.
Yeah. Another medieval comparison to him would be like, I'm glad he wasn't like Joffrey from Game of Thrones, where he was just over the top evil and just to the core a bad dude. Like, I don't really know how to judge Ben Affleck's character in this movie because he's just doing what everybody else like him would have been doing at this time, which is bad, but he didn't really seem like so egregious compared to even like the actions that Adam Driver's character takes in this movie.
He definitely seemed to be a product of his time, which is not an excuse or anything, but I feel like that's the truth.
I think there's something that you said that because we share a little bit of the same opinion on Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, but the character that he played in this movie was what I think Ben Affleck is kind of like. So it was so funny because one of the things that you said that stood to me, that's like, that's exactly what he's like. Is this guy's acting like he's dated J-Lo and Ana de Armas.
Yeah, exactly. That in this movie he had that same like that just energy of like, yep, I was just with J-Lo and Ana de Armas. He definitely carried that Chad vibe into this movie.
He's such a bro. Like in this
he's just
movie.
such a bro. He's such a bro. But this is a bro down movie. Like, I'm calling it The Last Bro from now on, dude.
But one of my favorite scenes is a very serious subject matter is when Adam Driver's character comes to tell him, they want to take me to court for it, and Ben Affleck is listening to him. He's like, "Take off your pants. There's like women here." Like, he's just kind of like trying to rush him and be like, "Dude,
they're talking about something super serious." And he's like, "Bro, why aren't your pants off yet? We got girls in this
we have an
room."
orgy to get to.
Oh my god.
He's like, "Come on, look at them."
It's just terrible.
Is there any like specific scenes or moments that you guys want to highlight before we wrap this up?
Something that I do have to say about one certain aspect of this film is I thought that the battle scenes, they did a really good job on.
Thank you. I was just about to say that next.
Yeah, like a lot of, I'm sure you guys know, in a lot of action scenes, the editing and camera work is sometimes very sporadic and all over the place, and it makes it hard to see what's going on. But with this movie, I thought they did a really good job of, showing you what's happening and the brutality and honesty of what war really is.
Yes.
And in the scene, the last duel, like when they actually duel each other towards the end, the intimacy of the fight, it was so good. I thought they did a really good job with that. So that's what I have to say about this.
I don't love violence all the time in movies. Sometimes I do think it's just like a cheap way of getting the audience's attention. But in this movie, it was very necessary to show just how like brutal, like truly that this time was. Like if you got your throat sliced, blood spraying all over the battlefield, like that was badass.
Like to see jousting is always cool to me. That's like a medieval aspect that I really like. It's like that's so
that shit's crazy.
Primitive, And I also in that last scene, I think one of the cool things that I liked. Or that looked really gnarly was like when the horse gets stabbed.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh my god, and then his horse kind of goes to the wall, and then they're kind of facing the wall, and you think like, oh, maybe what are they gonna do, right? And then all of a sudden, Adam Driver comes and tries to like.
They start like fist fighting, and like fighting with like their weapons that are on them. Like that was really cool.
Yeah, that scene was
phenomenal
awesome.
scene.
And then to have it be at the end, Matt Damon's above him. He's like, confess, and he still doesn't confess. He's like, it never happened.
Yeah.
He just to his death, he denied. And it was that last and even at the beginning when it just shows like them suiting up, I thought that was really cool when they're just putting the armor on them. I love seeing
small things like that, those small little details.
I like that a lot.
Because that shit wasn't easy to put on back
exactly.
in the day.
Like it's just so crazy to me to try to lift. Because what is that? Like
it's made out
of wood? A lance is wood, right?
Yeah.
And just to be able to lift that lance while also wearing metal. And then to keep going and going.
And the horse is armored up too.
Yeah, the horses. It's really cool. Really cool scene.
I definitely recommend this movie. I'm sure you guys do as well. I mean, Nate's seen it twice.
I've seen it twice already, and I didn't even think I was gonna like it. So
Yeah.
I would say go see this movie. Obviously, very serious subject matter. So if that's something that you're not, you don't want to see, don't see it. But everybody else, I think it's an important movie, and it frames this whole topic in a light that it needs to be shown on.
How many
So-
shields out of 5? Would you give it?
On Letterboxd, I have it that it's 3.5, but I think it's going up to 4.
After seeing it a second time and it held up again, I'm gonna give it a 4. 4 shields out of 5.
4 shields out of 5.
Yeah, I mean 3.5 for me, but I think after talking about it some more, this is the first time we try to save a lot of what we're going to talk about for the podcast because we don't want to repeat ourselves. But I was gonna say after talking about it for like an hour now, it sits like somewhere in the middle, like 3.8. As weird as that sounds, like you know what I mean.
Just give it the
it's trying to
point
be
two.
that-
Just give it the point
yeah,
two.
exactly. It's like 3.75. But no, I like this movie a lot more than I thought I would like it. I don't mind the 2 hours and a half that it runs, and I'm glad that we saw it because I know there was a point that it seemed like we didn't want to watch it, and I mean Nate and me. And then we're like, we'll come up with another one. And it's like, well, I don't think there's going to be something better than this either. And I'm really glad that I was wrong, that it was going to be boring. Like, I really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to have it, like, in a physical copy to be able to watch it again.
I want to see some of the
Double feature.
behind-the-scenes stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
And, I mean, I know with, like, the pod in general, we don't want to do movies. If we're going to see some stuff that we, like, thought we were going to do an episode on, and then maybe we won't want to. And, like, this kind of movie... If we didn't like it, you wouldn't be hearing this episode right now. And that's just kind of how I feel about it in general. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys for an hour and 10 minutes about a movie I don't like.
Correct.
So, yeah, I'm just glad you guys liked it, and I'm glad we're here talking about it because it is a good one. Like, I told my wife, she didn't come see it with us, but I'm like, I can't wait for you to see this movie. Like, this is just high-class filmmaking.
It's powerful. The performances are some of the best acting performances I've seen in a long time.
I would not be surprised if this movie is just racking up the nominations, honestly.
I know there's, like, maybe a scene where they're battling, and it seems to be a lot of soldiers, and maybe more than half of the background is green screen.
Mm-hmm.
So I was noticing that. But for a lot of it, I was noticing that it seemed very big crew, like those type of like Ben-Hur type of like. There's a lot of people here.
I think
you
they
know
had
what I
like
mean?
at least 100 extras.
It makes sense, and like
Some of them were fake though. You could totally tell. Yeah,
because some of them I just like their faces even kind of not that you can't see it very clearly is what I wanted to say. Like it seems like it's very repeated. If you pay attention, it's like very repeated.
it's probably
type
just
of
like the same
crowds.
guy, like 10 of the same guy.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and it's fine. I get it to make it seem like 1,000. Like I know they did that in 300. Like there was only 30 people, and then you just kind of copy everything. But to see some movies being made with that big of cast is I think what makes it so much more believable for me. And
I like seeing these types of movies, just like these epics.
yeah,
It really is an epic movie.
Yeah, I agree. And they don't like. I know the last one that we saw that was kind of like an epic was The Green Knight, right? Like a movie that's very, like everything, like the setting is very big and like there's
The
just
scope and the
there's a
scale
scope,
and
exactly.
you can sense the grandeur of the movie, right?
And like this was the next one that we've seen that's like that. And I guess for a long time, and I don't have the heaviest opinion on it, but I hadn't seen a movie that was like that for a while, and I feel like they're kind of slowly making a comeback. And I really like seeing movies like that. And I know Dune's coming up, which is another movie that is setting up same thing, like a very, very big scope. And when it's done right, I think it's some of my favorite movies.
It's like one of the reasons we go to the movies, man. As much as we love these indie movies, when you got like $100 million budget like this, and you can get this kind of cast and this kind of scope and scale in real locations, it's what I love about movies. You
Correct,
know?
yeah. And just to see, it sucks that this movie, because I saw somebody talking about, if you think about all the movies that are in the theater right now, this movie is the best movie right now. You got Carnage.
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. What I mean, those are the
Halloween
two that I can
Kills.
think of. Yeah, there you go. Halloween Kills. Out of all of those three, this is the best movie, and it just sucks.
Oh, by
that
far.
By far. There's no. Yeah, $100 million budget for it to only get $4 million back. And I was seeing a lot of people that were talking negative on it. Was like, I didn't even know this movie was out. But honestly, like, us three go to the movies all the time. I've seen this trailer so many times. When we went to go watch The Green Knight, I almost didn't like it then because I was like, it's not going to be The Green Knight.
The AMC that we go to also has this movie like plastered all over the front. Like, you know, some AMCs have the big giant poster above, and then it has the little individual posters that will have the different characters' faces.
Right.
That's what's at our AMC, at least. This movie is
That's
easily
like- that's
being the
the-
most hyped up one.
Yeah, I'm surprised that people are saying that they didn't even know about it, because I think that's a reason why I honestly didn't want to see it as much, is because I've seen it so many times all over the place.
Even on my drive home, and I know me and Ro carpooled home from this movie, and he was like, "Oh look, hey, here's a poster for the Last Duel."
There's a billboard?
Yeah.
That's funny.
On our way home by the like where they usually put like the lotto.
Okay.
On the other side of that lotto billboard, it's been there for like a month, but now that I've seen it to me, I'm like, to say that you haven't seen anything about this movie is crazy. Because like if I go on YouTube, even 2 weeks ago, this was on there, like just trying to get my attention. And maybe it's because it's curated to what I like, but I've seen a lot of this movie, and it just sucks that it hasn't done that well. And maybe that's why they don't let certain directors do stuff like this anymore.
Something that I thought was interesting is when we were looking at getting tickets, I remember that you said, the AMC app said that this was considered an artisan film.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, what the fuck? It's $100 million, and it's Ridley Scott and Adam Driver and
now
Matt
that'd
Damon
be considered artisan.
And this is artisan?
They're like Titan, Lamb, The Last Duel.
It almost feels like if it's not a Marvel movie, it's
considered
Artisan.
art, real art,
yeah,
quote
exactly.
unquote, right?
I'm like, what?
Okay. You guys ready to wind this down?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
guys
we
got
can
your
go
last
ahead.
thoughts?
I think-
Okay. If you've listened this far, what I think the code word today, go ahead. Do you want to say it?
No. I think you got a better
No?
idea. I thought we might talk about it, but I hadn't even thought about it. So what do you have in mind?
Let's do the code word. Will be I am innocent. If you've made it this far, DM us. I am innocent, and just to let us know that you got this far. If you've seen the movie, please DM us and talk to us about it. Maybe you didn't like it. Maybe you did love it.
Let us know what you thought about the movie. Let us know what you're thinking about this podcast. Just go ahead and shoot us a DM and say what's up. You know what I mean?
Last note here, in the first episode, we had mentioned liking and subscribing on YouTube, but we have had some trouble figuring that out, like some audio issues. We're going to take care of that, and so the YouTube page will be up. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, and yeah, thank you for checking into the Grand Cinema Hotel, room 103, The Last Duel.
Until next time, guys.
Good night, everybody.